They laughed through champagne toasts at their own anniversary party, raising glasses to real jobs, while I pitched my emergency pharmaceutical delivery startup that no one believed in. A week later, the video of my parents mocking me went viral in our family group chat, and my lead investor pulled out minutes before signing. The day they walked into my headquarters, trembling as they begged for work, I already had the employment terms drafted and waiting on the conference table. My name is Elena Hart, and on the night my parents destroyed my future, I was wearing the dress they'd bought me for my 16th birthday, the last gift they gave me before everything became transactional. The private dining room at Juniper and Stone hummed with conversation, crystal glasses catching the candlelight as 37 relatives gathered to celebrate my parents' 25th wedding anniversary. I sat between my co-founder Priya and my cousin Jessica, watching my father, Martin Keaton, command the room like he commanded his building supply empire with absolute certainty that his way was the only way. "Before we toast," Martin began, his voice cutting through the chatter, "I want to thank everyone for being here. 25 years of marriage, 23 years of Keaton Supply, and 2 beautiful daughters." He paused, his eyes finding mine. "Well, one who followed a sensible path in accounting, and Elena here, who's still chasing her. What do you call it again? Sweetheart Sunstream Courier," I said evenly. "We deliver critical medications to rural areas within 2-hour windows." "Right, the drone thing." He chuckled, and the room rippled with polite laughter. "In my day, we called that a pharmacy delivery boy. Now apparently it needs venture capital and a business plan." My mother, Carol, touched his arm playfully. "Martin, be nice." "Elena's very passionate about her little project." "Little project?" I kept my voice steady. "We're serving 3 counties. We have contracts with 2 rural pharmacies and a letter of intent from Pioneer Harbor Ventures for a $2 million Series A." $2 million, Martin repeated, shaking his head. "For delivering pills. You know what I did with $2 million? I opened our 3rd location. Real estate, real inventory, real jobs." He raised his glass. "Here's to real work, real business, and really knowing when to give up on fantasies." The room erupted in agreement. Glasses clinked. My Uncle Dennis, who sat on various municipal committees, nodded approvingly. "The girl needs stability. Martin, all this startup nonsense, it's just gambling with fancy words." Jessica had her phone out, recording. "This is hilarious," she whispered to her husband. "Elena's face right now." I watched her thumb move across the screen. Upload to story. Tag the family. Add laughing emojis. You know what's funny?" I stood, my chair scraping against the floor. "Every person at this table has complained about driving 40 minutes to get their prescriptions. Mrs. Chen nearly went into diabetic shock last month because the pharmacy was closed when she needed insulin." "Sit down, Elena," Carol hissed. "I'm paying for dinner," I said, pulling out my personal credit card, the one linked to my emergency fund, the last 6 months of runway I'd saved. $1,500 to celebrate your real jobs. Enjoy the champagne." I made it to the parking lot before my phone buzzed. Not a family member checking on me, Pioneer Harbor Ventures. "Elena, it's Marcus. Look, I'm sorry, but we need to discuss the investment. My partner just sent me something from social media, a video of you at dinner. The family dynamics, the public mockery it raises concerns about reputational risk and founder stability. We're going to need to pause our due diligence." I stood in the dark parking lot, watching through the restaurant windows as my family continued their celebration, oblivious to what they'd just cost me. My phone lit up with notifications. Jessica's story was spreading. The family group chat was alive with laughing reactions and comments about Elena's little medicine dream. Priya emerged from the restaurant, carrying our coats. "I called an Uber," she said quietly, "and I screenshot everything before Jessica deletes it." "Why would she delete it?" "She won't, but we need evidence." Priya's face was grim in the streetlight. "They want you to fail. Elena, this wasn't random mockery, this was sabotage." The Uber pulled up, and as we drove away, I pulled up my bank statements on my phone. The emergency fund, $48,000. The exact amount. I realized with a sick feeling that my parents had borrowed from my college fund 15 years ago and never returned. "We're not pausing anything," I told Priya. "We're accelerating, and we're documenting everything." She nodded, already typing on her phone. "I'll call the lawyers in the morning. We might have lost Pioneer Harbor, but there are other investors." "No," I said, watching the city lights blur past. "First, we prove them wrong. Then, we make them pay." The $48,000 haunted me as I sat in our cramped warehouse office at 4:30 a.m. reconciling accounts under flickering fluorescent lights. That money should have paid for my final 2 years at Northwestern. Instead, it became temporary working capital for Keaton Supply during the 2008 crash, with promises of repayment that evaporated like morning dew. I discovered the truth at 19, home for winter break, when I found the papers in my father's desk loan documents using my college fund as collateral. My grandmother Rose had died when I was 7, leaving that money specifically for my education. The betrayal cut deeper than the financial loss. They'd stolen my future and never even apologized. Sunstream Courier was born 3 years ago, not from ambition, but from helplessness. I'd been working as a pharmacy tech at Walgreens when Mrs. Patterson collapsed in our parking lot. Diabetic. 73, lived 40 miles outside Santa Fe. The shuttle service that delivered her insulin had been cut. She'd rationed her doses for a week, trying to make it last. "Nobody cares about us out here," she whispered from the ambulance gurney. "We're invisible." I quit Walgreens that day and started researching. Rural medication delivery was a massive gap, not sexy enough for big tech, not profitable enough for traditional logistics. But with the right model, small hub warehouses, temperature-controlled vehicles, partnerships with local pharmacies, and strict HIPAA compliance, it could work. Priya found me through a startup meetup, bringing her MIT computer science degree and a shared fury about healthcare inequity. We built the routing algorithm in her garage, tested it with my ancient Honda Civic and a borrowed cooler. Our first delivery was birth control pills to a teenager in Chimayo whose parents couldn't know she was on them. Our second was heart medication to a veteran in Tasuk who'd lost his license to PTSD-related seizures. Word spread. Pharmacies started calling. We formalized partnerships, hired 2 drivers, leased a proper warehouse in North Lake Commons. Everything above board LLC formation, HIPAA compliance training, pharmaceutical handling certifications, insurance bonds. We were 7 months from profitability. Then Carol started her campaign. "Your daughter seems stressed," she told our warehouse landlord at a Chamber of Commerce meeting. "Financial troubles, you know. Such a shame when young people overextend themselves." The landlord called the next day. "I'm going to need an additional 3-month security deposit. Nothing personal, just protecting my investment." $12,000 I didn't have. I paid it anyway, draining half the emergency fund. Martin's sabotage was subtler. He'd mention my struggling delivery service to anyone who'd listen, always with that concerned father tone. "Kids these days think apps solve everything. She'll learn." The rumor mill churned. Potential drivers heard we couldn't make payroll. Pharmacies heard we were unlicensed. Dr. Aisha Lowell saved us. As Ridgeview Health's medical director, her word carried weight. "Sunstream has never missed a delivery window," she announced at a public health meeting. "They've maintained perfect temperature logs for controlled substances. If you're spreading rumors about their stability, you're endangering patient lives." My Aunt Marianne was the only family member who understood. She'd slip me cash at family gatherings, 50 here, 100 there. "For gas," she'd whisper, but we both knew it was for the business. She'd been a nurse for 30 years, seen what happened when medications didn't arrive. "Your parents are scared," she told me one evening, sitting in her kitchen while her husband watched TV. "You're proving their whole worldview wrong. That success doesn't require stepping on others, that helping people can be profitable. It threatens everything they've built. They used my college fund as collateral. Marianne." "I know." She poured more tea. "I saw the papers years ago. Tried to convince them to tell you. Martin said you'd understand when you were older, that family businesses require sacrifice." Whose sacrifice not theirs? No, she agreed. Never theirs. We signed our first major contract 3 weeks after the anniversary dinner 90-day trial with 2 rural pharmacies in San Miguel County. The terms were tight 98% on-time delivery requirement, full refund for any temperature excursion, penalties for documentation errors. One mistake could bankrupt us. Priya ran the numbers obsessively. We have 6 months runway if nothing goes wrong. When has nothing gone wrong? She pulled up a spreadsheet. I've modeled 47 failure scenarios. We survive 39 of them. And the other 8, we better not hit those. She paused. Your parents know our runway, don't they? I thought about all the questions they'd asked over the years, framed as concern, cash flow, burn rate, reserves. I'd answered honestly, stupidly, thinking they cared. Yeah, I said, they know exactly how long we can last. The fire marshal's notice arrived on a Tuesday at 8:15 a.m., hand-delivered by a clerk who wouldn't make eye contact. Routine inspection, he mumbled, but I recognized the signature at the bottom. Dennis Keaton, my uncle, suddenly very interested in the fire safety of medical warehouses. They're escalating, Priya said, scanning the notice. We have 72 hours to address 17 code violations that didn't exist last month. I pulled up our previous inspection report. Perfect compliance 4 months ago. Now suddenly our sprinkler heads were incorrectly positioned, our exit signage was inadequate, and our chemical storage protocols were under review. How much to fix it? That's not the point. They'll just find new violations. This is about delaying our satellite warehouse permit. The satellite warehouse in Espanola was crucial. It would cut delivery times to northern counties by half. We'd already paid the deposit, hired local staff. Without that permit, we'd lose both the location and credibility. I started documenting everything: email timestamps, call logs. The metadata showed a pattern every agency contact traced back to either Keaton Supply's office number or Dennis's City Hall extension. Martin wasn't even trying to hide it. Then came the Facebook posts. Concerned citizen started appearing in Santa Fe community groups. Has anyone verified Sunstream Courier's pharmaceutical licenses? Seems suspicious. Unmarked vehicles carrying controlled substances through our neighborhoods. The posts gained traction. Worried mothers commented. Someone claimed they saw our driver acting suspiciously near a school. Another said we were probably trafficking pills. The algorithmic pile-on was swift and brutal. Priya traced the IP addresses through a friend at Facebook. 3 accounts, all created within a week, all posting from the same location, a coffee shop 2 blocks from Keaton Supply. We could expose them, she said. With what proof? IP addresses and circumstantial evidence? I shook my head. We need something undeniable. It came the next day via voicemail. Carol, presumably thinking she'd reached our landlord's personal line instead of the warehouse's main number. Hi, it's Carol Keaton. We spoke at the chamber lunch about my daughter's warehouse situation. I wanted to reiterate she's absolutely not capable of maintaining those payments past next month. I'd hate for you to be left holding the bag when she defaults. Just a mother's concern. I played it for our lawyer, Victor Salazar. He leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled. Tortious interference, defamation, fraud, potentially. This is a goldmine if you want to sue. I don't want to sue. I want to survive. Then you need leverage. He pulled out a legal pad. Your parents' business, any vulnerabilities. I thought about Keaton Supply. 3 locations, heavily leveraged, dependent on construction contracts. The construction industry's been slow. They floated bonds last year for expansion that aren't performing well. Public bonds, semi-public, through the City Development Fund. Victor smiled. Public enough. Let me make some calls. While Victor investigated, Priya proposed a solution for the warehouse problem. Mobile storage units, Conex containers modified for pharmaceutical storage. They're technically vehicles, not structures, so different permitting. That's expensive. Less expensive than bankruptcy. And Dr. Lowell at Ridgeview says they have unused parking capacity. Hospital property, hospital rules. Your uncle can't touch it. We met with Dr. Lowell that evening in her office overlooking the hospital's loading dock. She was 60, steel-haired, and took no bullshit from anyone. Your parents are fools, she said bluntly. Do you know how many patients have told me Sunstream saved their lives? Not metaphorically. Literally. Insulin, heart medications, anti-rejection drugs delivered when nobody else would. They think I'm playing at business. No. They think you're succeeding where they're failing. She pulled up construction reports on her computer. Keaton Supply bid on our new wing. Lost to a company that offered better terms and faster delivery. Your father was furious, accused us of favoritism. She turned the screen toward me. Their bid was 40% higher and included multiple timeline extensions. They're bleeding money. I stared at the numbers. $3 million in expected revenue. Gone. That explained the desperation. I'll approve the temporary permits for the mobile units, Dr. Lowell continued. But Elena, you need to stop playing defense. They won't stop until you make them. That night, I compiled everything into a folder. Email chains, voice recordings, financial documents showing the college fund transfer, screenshots of the fake Facebook accounts, the fire inspection discrepancies, call logs between Dennis and various city departments, a timeline showing how every sabotage attempt preceded our major milestones. What are you going to do with it? Priya asked. I thought about Mrs. Patterson, collapsed in a parking lot. The teenager in Chimayo, the veteran in Tasuk, all the people depending on us. I'm going to stop being their daughter, I said, and start being their problem. I created a new LLC that night, Sundial Holdings, untraceable to me through layers of legal structure. Victor had given me the playbook. Now, I just needed capital. How much can we pull from operations? I asked Priya. 20,000 without affecting deliveries. Do it. We're going shopping. For what? Debt? Specifically, Keaton Supply's debt. The call came at 5:43 a.m. on a Saturday. Elena, it's Dr. Lowell. We have a situation. The Glorietta Pass fire had started small. A cigarette tossed from a car. Drought-dry brush. Wind from the wrong direction. Within hours, it jumped the highway. The evacuation center at Glorietta Baptist Church held 300 people, including 47 with chronic conditions requiring refrigerated medications. State emergency services are overwhelmed. Dr. Lowell continued. The pharmacy in Pecos is cut off by the fire line. Can Sunstream help? I was already pulling up our inventory system. What do they need? Insulin, primarily. 18 diabetics, various types, plus 2 kids with severe allergies who need EpiPens, and 1 transplant patient whose anti-rejection meds can't skip a dose. Give me 20 minutes to coordinate. Priya was already at her computer when I called. I see the evacuation zone. The main road's blocked, but there's a Forest Service road that's still clear. It'll add 90 minutes to transport time. Can we maintain cold chain? If we use the new portable units and dry ice supplement, I'll have Tommy prep them now. We loaded 3 vehicles with medications pulled from our pharmacy partners' emergency stocks, every vial logged, every temperature sensor calibrated. This wasn't just a humanitarian mission, it was a demonstration of everything Sunstream could do. The Forest Service road was rough, barely more than a dirt track, but our drivers made it through. I rode in the lead vehicle, watching the temperature logs on my tablet, coordinating with the evacuation center by satellite phone. When we arrived at 2:20 p.m., the scene was controlled chaos. Families clustered on cots, elderly people in wheelchairs, children crying from fear and confusion. The medical station was a folding table staffed by 2 overwhelmed nurses. Sunstream courier. One nurse looked ready to cry with relief. Thank God. Mr. Ramirez is approaching DKA. We've been rationing his last vial. We distributed medications systematically. Each patient signed electronic receipts on our HIPAA-compliant tablets. Temperature logs showed perfect cold chain maintenance despite the 4-hour journey. The transplant patient, a 12-year-old girl named Sophia, hugged me when I handed her mother the anti-rejection drugs. The hospital said nobody could get through, her mother whispered. You saved her life. A reporter from the Santa Fe Ledger was covering the evacuation. You're the medical delivery company, right? The one that's been having permit troubles. I gave him the facts. Number of patients served, medications delivered, temperature compliance maintained, response time from initial call. He took photos of our drivers helping elderly patients, our refrigerated units humming steadily in 100-degree heat. The story ran Monday morning. Front page of the business section. Local startup delivers critical medications through fire zone as traditional services fail. The Chamber of Commerce president called personally. We'd like to honor Sunstream at our monthly meeting. This is exactly the kind of innovation and community service we should celebrate. Martin's response was predictable and desperate. That afternoon, Keaton Supply announced a donation drive for fire victims, pledging building materials nobody had asked for. The press release mentioned established businesses with proven track records 3 times, but the damage to their reputation was already spreading through contractor networks. 3 more bids rejected that week. A credit line called for review. Dennis quietly recused himself from the permit committee after someone, Dr. Lowell, I suspected, filed a conflict of interest complaint. I found the foreclosure notice by accident, searching public records for something else entirely. Desert Federal Bank had filed preliminary paperwork on a Keaton Supply equipment loan. $600,000, 90 days past due. They mortgaged everything, Victor explained when I showed him the documents. The warehouses, the delivery trucks, even the office furniture. Classic over-leveraging. And look at this. He pointed to a signature line. Personal guarantee from both your parents. If the business loan defaults, the bank can take their personal assets, including their house, especially their house. I thought about that house, the one they'd bought with profits from the business, expanded using my college fund, maintained while telling me there was no money for tuition. How much to buy the debt? I asked. Banks usually sell distressed debt for 30 to 50 cents on the dollar. For $600,000? Maybe $300,000 if you negotiate well. I don't have $300,000. No, but you have something better. Victor pulled up another document. Recognition. The fire rescue story. The Chamber commendation. Sunstream's valuation just tripled. You could get bridge financing easily now. I won't risk Sunstream's assets for revenge. Not Sunstream. Sundial Holdings. Completely separate entity. And it wouldn't be revenge, it would be an investment. Distressed debt is a legitimate asset class. That evening, while reviewing patient delivery confirmations from the fire response, I found something interesting in our database. Sophia's mother had left a note. Please share our story. Insurance denied coverage for transport, said it wasn't medically necessary. You did what million-dollar companies wouldn't. I forwarded it to the reporter who'd covered the fire. His follow-up story ran Wednesday. Insurance giants deny coverage, while local startup steps up. Pioneer Harbor Ventures called again. Marcus. Sheepish now. Elena, we reconsidered. The fire response. The press coverage, it shows exceptional execution under pressure. We'd like to restart due diligence. Triple the valuation, I said. And I want board observer rights, not board control. That's aggressive. So was pulling out because of a family video. Take it or leave it. He took it. $2 million at a $9 million valuation, closing in 30 days. Enough to fund operations for 2 years and enough credibility to secure a separate credit line for Sundial Holdings. The Santa Fe business community was small. Word traveled fast. Within a week, everyone knew Sunstream had secured major funding while Keaton Supply faced foreclosure. Carol called me that night, first time since the anniversary dinner. Elena, sweetheart, we heard about your success. We're so proud. I hung up and blocked the number. Then I called Victor. Start the process, I said. I want to buy their debt. All of it. Every penny. And Victor, make sure the bank knows it's a cash offer. I want this done before they realize what's happening. The conference room at Desert Federal Bank smelled like fear and old coffee. The asset recovery manager, James Worthington, shuffled papers nervously as Victor slid our offer across the mahogany table. $320,000 for the entire Keaton portfolio, Victor said smoothly. Cash, closing within 72 hours. Worthington's eyes darted between us. The face value is $600,000. The face value is irrelevant when they're 90 days delinquent, I said, speaking for the first time. You're heading for foreclosure proceedings that'll cost you another $100,000 and take 6 months. We're offering 53% of face value. Immediate liquidity. Your voice sounds familiar, Worthington said, frowning. Have we met? I don't think so, Victor interjected. My client prefers to remain anonymous. Sundial Holdings is a private equity firm specializing in distressed assets. I'd worn my hair differently, dressed in a style my parents would never recognize, sleek investment banker rather than startup founder. Still, my hands stayed steady as I signed the papers as E. Harrison, managing member of Sundial Holdings, LLC. We'll need time to review. You have 24 hours, Victor said. After that, we explore other opportunities. There's a lot of distressed debt in construction right now. Outside, in Victor's car, I finally let myself breathe. They'll take it, he said. Banks hate non-performing commercial loans. You're doing them a favor. I'm not doing anyone favors. I'm buying power. The acceptance came 18 hours later. Desert Federal was eager to clear their books before quarterly reporting. The transfer was swift, clinical. With a wire transfer and some signatures, Sundial Holdings became the primary creditor of Keaton Supply. Now what? Priya asked when I told her that evening. We were in the Sunstream warehouse, preparing for our public partnership announcement with the Chamber of Commerce. Now we wait. They don't know yet. The bank won't notify them until the transfer is complete and the new servicer makes contact. That gives us 3 days to prepare. I scheduled Sunstream's Community Partnership Open House for the following Thursday. Invitations went to every major player in Santa Fe's business community, the chamber president, hospital administrators, pharmacy partners, local press, and, because I was still technically their daughter, my parents. You invited them. Priya was incredulous. They won't come. But when everything falls apart, they can't say I excluded them. The preparation was meticulous. We created displays showing our delivery routes, response times, patient testimonials, a presentation on rural healthcare access, live demonstrations of our cold chain management. Everything Keaton Supply wasn't innovative, efficient, community-focused. I also prepared a second set of documents. The file Victor and I had assembled, laugh leverage documentation, email chains, voicemails, evidence of sabotage, the diverted college fund, all organized chronologically, each piece cross-referenced and legally verified. Tuesday morning, the certified letter arrived at Keaton Supply. I knew because Carol called me from a blocked number. Hysterical. Elena, there's been a mistake. The bank sold our loan to some company called Sundial. They're demanding full payment in 30 days or they'll seize the assets. You have to help us. I can't help you, I said calmly. I have a business to run. This is your father's life work. My life's work was supposed to be a Northwestern degree. Remember that fund, the one you borrowed and never returned? Silence. Then, that was different. That was family money. No, that was my money, from Grandma Rose, with my name on it, which you stole. We were desperate. So was the diabetic woman who couldn't get insulin. So was the 12-year-old who needed anti-rejection drugs. Desperate people do desperate things. Right? That's what you taught me. I hung up. Wednesday, Martin tried a different approach. He showed up at our warehouse with Dennis, attempting to strong-arm his way past reception. I demand to speak to my daughter. Security camera footage caught everything. Him banging on the glass door. Dennis flashing his city credentials, threatening inspections. Our security guard, calm and professional, explaining they were trespassing on private property. She owes us, Martin screamed. We raised her, we fed her, we gave her everything. Everything except the education fund that was legally mine. Everything except support for my business. Everything except basic respect. I watched from my office window as they were escorted out. Then I called Victor. Add harassment and trespassing to the file. And Victor. Make sure Sundial's first official communication references the personal guarantee. I want them to know their house is on the line. Thursday morning arrived crisp and bright. The open house was scheduled for 2 p.m. At 1:30, I stood in our transformed warehouse space, checking every detail: professional banners, clear signage, refreshment stations, local news crews setting up cameras. Priya handed me a tablet. Look at this. A new posting in the Santa Fe Business Forum. Anonymous warning Sunstream courier under investigation for fraud. I smiled. They're panicking. Post our licenses, permits, and insurance certificates in response. Full transparency? Already done. And Elena. She showed me another screen. Desert Federal just confirmed the fund transfer cleared. Sundial Holdings officially owns Keaton Supply's debt. 1:45. Guests started arriving. The chamber president shook my hand warmly. Impressive setup. Elena, your parents must be proud. They've been very vocal about my career choices, I said truthfully. Dr. Lowell arrived with 3 hospital board members, the fire chief who'd coordinated the Glorieta response, 2 county commissioners, the reporter from the Santa Fe Ledger, notebook ready. At 1:58, my parents walked in. The room fell silent as Martin strode to the microphone I'd just vacated. Carol stood beside him, wearing her best real estate smile, the one that had closed 100 deals on behalf of Keaton Supply. Before we celebrate my daughter's achievements, Martin began, his voice carrying that familiar condescending tone. I think the community deserves transparency about who they're really partnering with. The chamber president shifted uncomfortably. Mr. Keaton, this isn't the appropriate. My daughter is unstable. Martin continued, paranoid. She's created elaborate fantasies about our family sabotaging her business. What kind of person accuses their own parents of conspiracy? I stepped forward, calm. Would you like me to answer that? Dad, with documentation. Documentation of your delusions. I connected my laptop to the presentation screen. Let's start with this. The first slide. A call log showing 23 calls from Keaton Supply's main line to our warehouse landlord over 2 weeks. Coincidentally, I said, right before our rent was raised. Martin's face reddened. That proves nothing. Next slide. The voicemail transcript. Carol's voice filled the room through the speakers. She's absolutely not capable of maintaining those payments past next month. I'd hate for you to be left holding the bag when she defaults. Gasps from the audience. The reporter scribbled furiously. That was taken out of context. Carol stammered. The context of trying to get me evicted. I clicked again. Screenshots of the Facebook posts. IP addresses traced, overlaid with a map showing their origin 2 blocks from Keaton Supply. Someone created fake accounts to spread rumors about Sunstream trafficking drugs. I explained. Someone using your office's coffee shop Wi-Fi. Dennis stood abruptly. So this is circumstantial, like your signature on fire inspection delays. Next slide. The inspection reports, before and after, with Dennis's authorization on the violations that mysteriously appeared. Dr. Lowell spoke up. Dennis, you signed those. You're not even qualified to assess medical storage facilities. I was doing my civic duty. You were doing your brother's dirty work. I pulled up the next document. But here's what really matters. This is a legal document from 2009. The room leaned forward. On screen, the loan papers using my college fund as collateral. $48,000, I said quietly. Left to me by my grandmother for my education. Borrowed by Keaton Supply. Never repaid. Instead, used to secure a business loan that my parents personally guaranteed. That was family money, Martin shouted. We needed it for the business. It was my money, with my name on it, that you took without my permission when I was 19. I looked at the audience. Every person here knows what that money means to a college student. It was my future, and they stole it. The chamber president was pale. Martin, is this true? Family businesses require sacrifice. My sacrifice, not theirs. I clicked to the final slide. Which brings us to today. The Sundial Holdings letterhead appeared on screen. The debt purchase agreement. $600,000 of Keaton Supply debt. Now owned by a company I controlled? No, Carol whispered. You didn't. 30 days to pay in full, I said. Or Sundial Holdings will exercise its rights under the personal guarantee. That includes your house, your cars, and any other assets pledged as collateral. Martin lunged toward me, but Dr. Lowell's security stepped between us. You ungrateful, I laughed, harsh and short. You stole my education fund. You tried to destroy my business. You publicly humiliated me and cost me investors. And now you want gratitude. The reporter raised his hand. Ms. Hart, are you saying your parents deliberately sabotaged Sunstream? I'm saying the evidence speaks for itself. Every major setback we faced traces back to them. Every permit delay, every rumor, every lost opportunity. They wanted me to fail so badly they risked their own reputation to make it happen. This is extortion, Martin screamed. Victor stepped forward. Actually, it's a legitimate debt purchase. Your clients signed these loans, personally guaranteed them, and defaulted. Ms. Hart, through Sundial Holdings, purchased the debt at market rate. Everything is completely legal. Elena, Carol's voice broke. We're your parents. No, you're my debtors, and you have 29 days left. The room erupted. Board members whispered urgently. The reporter was on his phone, calling his editor. Dr. Lowell moved to the microphone. I think we've seen enough, she said firmly. The hospital board fully supports Sunstream Courier. Their integrity and service speak for themselves. As for Keaton Supply, she looked at my parents with disgust. I believe your contracts with Ridgeview Health need immediate review. The dominoes fell quickly. 3 more contractors announced they were reconsidering Keaton Supply bids. The City Planning Commission scheduled an emergency meeting about Dennis's conflict of interest. The chamber president asked my parents to leave. As security escorted them out, Martin turned back. You've destroyed us. No, I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. You destroyed yourselves. I just bought the wreckage. After they left, the open house continued. Partners signed agreements. Investors exchanged cards. The story was already spreading through Santa Fe's business network, the daughter who'd turned her parents' weapons against them. Dr. Lowell approached me during the reception. That was brutal. It was necessary. What happens in 29 days? I thought about the years of dismissal, the stolen fund, the attempted sabotage. They'll come begging, and when they do, I'll be ready with terms. Terms. Employment terms. I said, very specific ones. She studied me. You've planned this all along. They taught me that family businesses require sacrifice, I said. They just never specified whose. Day 29 arrived with morning frost on the warehouse windows. I'd been in the office since 5 a.m., reviewing the documents one final time. 2 contracts lay on my desk, printed on Sunstream letterhead, every clause precisely worded by Victor. At 9:47, they arrived. Martin had aged a month in those 29 days. His usual commanding presence had withered to something desperate and hollow. Carol clutched her purse like a life preserver, her real estate smile completely gone. Elena, Priya said through the intercom, your 9:45 is here. Why, I made them wait another 15 minutes. When I finally called them in, they found me behind my desk with Victor beside me and a camera in the corner, recording. Sit, I said. They sat. 29 days ago. You had options. I began. You could have liquidated assets, sought private investors, negotiated with other lenders. Instead, you spent 4 weeks trying to find legal loopholes and spreading more rumors about my mental stability. Elena, please, Carol started. I'm not finished. I opened the folder. Keaton Supply is effectively dead. Your contracts have been canceled. Your credit is destroyed. Dennis has been removed from all city committees. The only asset you have left is the house, which Sundial Holdings will seize tomorrow unless you accept my terms. Martin's hands shook as he reached for the papers I pushed across the desk. Employment contracts. 2 positions. Warehouse associates, night shift, 90-day probationary period. Carol read aloud, voice breaking. Starting wage, $15 per hour. Minimum wage plus $2, standard for entry-level warehouse work. This says we report to... Martin looked up, horrified. Tommy Nguyen is 25 years old, and he's been our night shift supervisor for 8 months. Excellent leader, very strict about protocol. Victor cleared his throat. There are additional requirements on page 3. They flipped. Carol gasped. A written confession. Martin's face went purple. Admitting to sabotage misuse of the college fund and a public apology, I added, handwritten statement, plus a 60-second verbal apology to be delivered to our full staff at Monday's meeting. This is humiliation. This is accountability. I leaned forward. Option 2 is simpler. Sundial forecloses tomorrow. You'll be homeless by Friday. Your choice. The silence stretched. Outside, I could hear our delivery trucks loading for the morning routes. Normal operations, while my parents' world collapsed. The restitution clause, Carol whispered. 20% of wages garnished until $48,000 plus interest is repaid. Compound interest from 2009. I confirmed. Comes to about $73,000. Should take you 6 years at this wage level, unless you earn promotions, which requires passing competency tests. Martin stood abruptly. We'll find another way. No, you won't. I pulled up my phone, showed them the countdown timer. You have 13 minutes until the foreclosure filing. Denver office closes at 11 a.m. Once filed, it's irreversible. You planned this to the minute, Carol said, a strange mix of horror and recognition in her voice. Every detail. I learned from the best. You taught me that family business requires sacrifice, that real work means getting your hands dirty, that success requires crushing the competition. I stood. Congratulations. You were excellent teachers. Martin slumped back into his chair. The apology. What exactly do we have to say? I handed them a single page. Not a script, just bullet points. Acknowledge the theft of the college fund. Admit to attempted sabotage. Apologize to Sunstream employees whose livelihoods they tried to destroy. Request forgiveness they didn't deserve. If we do this, Carol said slowly, we keep the house. You keep the house. You get jobs. You get a chance to rebuild. I paused. Which is more than you gave me. 8 minutes left. Martin picked up the pen. His signature had once authorized millions in construction deals. Now it shook across an entry-level employment contract. Carol signed next, tears dropping onto the paper. The confession, Victor reminded them. They wrote in silence, each word an admission of what they'd done. The college fund, the calls to landlords, the fake social media posts, the permit delays through Dennis, all of it. The verbal apology is Monday at 8 a.m. Sharp, I said. Don't be late. Tommy docs pay for tardiness. How do we explain this? Martin asked. To our friends, the community. The truth usually works. I stood, signaling the meeting was over. Report to HR at 11 p.m. Sunday night for orientation. You'll need steel-toed boots and warm clothing. The freezer units run at -20. They stood to leave, but Carol turned back. Why not just destroy us completely? You have the power. Because unlike you, I don't take pleasure in crushing people. This isn't about revenge. It's about justice. You took my education fund and tried to sabotage my dreams. Now you'll work to pay it back while helping the business you tried to destroy. For 6 years, or until you learn what actual work means, whichever comes first. Security escorted them out. Through my window, I watched them walk to their car, the Mercedes they'd bought with my college money. By next week, they'd probably have to sell it. Tommy didn't tolerate lateness, and public transit to our warehouse required catching the 5:30 a.m. bus. Monday morning came cold and clear. The entire Sunstream staff, now 32 people, gathered in the main warehouse. My parents stood at the front, wearing their new Sunstream uniforms with trainee badges. Martin read from a crumpled paper, his voice barely audible. "We apologize for attempting to sabotage Sunstream Courier. We stole Elena's college fund. We spread false rumors. We used connections to delay permits. We were wrong." Carol's 60 seconds were harder to watch. She broke down halfway through, choking on the words. "We tried to destroy our daughter's dreams because we couldn't control her." The room was silent when they finished. Then Tommy stepped forward with 2 warehouse scanners. "Training starts now. Bay 3 needs unloading. Temperature logs every 15 minutes. Breaks at 3A. Questions." They shook their heads. As Tommy led them away, I heard him explaining protocol. Product temperature excursions mean someone might die, so we follow procedure exactly. No exceptions, not even for the owner's parents. Especially not for them. From the second-floor observation window, I watched them struggle with the hand truck, trying to maneuver it through the narrow aisles of Bay 3. Carol slipped on wet concrete where ice had melted from the freezer doors. Martin's hands, soft from decades of desk work, were already blistering inside the work gloves. Tommy's voice carried up through the warehouse. "Faster. We have a 4A, pickup for the Navajo reservation. Those antibiotics won't deliver themselves." My phone buzzed. An email from Interwest Health Network, confirming our contract for 3-state distribution. $2.7 million annually. We'd need 50 more employees, 10 new vehicles, and warehouse facilities in Colorado and Arizona. I pulled up the staffing projections Priya had prepared. At the bottom, a note. "Your parents have completed their first week. 0 infractions, though Martin filed a complaint about the break room only having instant coffee. The complaint had been dismissed. Entry-level employees didn't get to complain about amenities." Below, Carol dropped a box. "Temperature-sensitive contents." Tommy was there immediately. Scanner out, checking for damage. I watched him explain, patiently but firmly, that each mistake was documented. 3 strikes meant termination. No exceptions. "Even for them?" Carol asked, barely audible from this distance. "Especially for them," Tommy replied. Elena's orders. Another email arrived. The Santa Fe Ledger wanted a follow-up story. From Family Feud to Fortune How, Sunstream Courier revolutionized rural healthcare delivery. I declined the interview. The work spoke for itself now. Through the window, I saw Martin loading insulin into a refrigerated unit. Each vial worth hundreds of dollars, each one destined for someone whose life depended on it arriving intact. His movements were careful, precise. Fear was an excellent teacher. Dr. Lowell appeared in my doorway. "Checking on your latest acquisition." She meant the parents, not the Interwest contract. "They're meeting expectations," I said neutrally. "That must be satisfying." Satisfaction would imply I still care about their opinions. I turned from the window. They're employees. Nothing more. And in 5 years and 6 months, when the debt is repaid, they're free to leave, though I doubt they'll have anywhere to go. Keaton Supply's reputation is destroyed. They're unemployable in construction management. This is their only option. Dr. Lowell studied me. "You've become quite ruthless. I've become what they made me. The only difference is I use it to help people instead of hurt them." She left, and I returned to the window. The morning shift was arriving. Young people mostly, some fresh from college, others looking for stable work with growth potential. They greeted Tommy warmly, nodded professionally to my parents. Word had spread about who the new trainees were, but nobody treated them differently. That was the Sunstream way performance mattered, not pedigree. My phone showed 312A, time to review the quarterly reports. Revenue up 300%. Patient satisfaction at 98%. 0 temperature excursions in the last quarter. We were everything Keaton Supply never was efficient. Ethical. Essential. A knock at my door. Priya entered with a tablet. "Final numbers for the Interwest launch. We're fully staffed except for 2 night shift positions in the Colorado facility. Post them publicly. Full benefits. promotional path clearly outlined. Your parents might apply. Transfer request after their 90 days are up. They won't. Moving costs money they don't have. And Tommy's already told me Martin can barely handle New Mexico elevation. Colorado would break him. Through the window, I watched them take their mandated 15-minute break. They sat alone at a picnic table, sharing a thermos of coffee they'd brought from home. The Mercedes was gone, replaced by a 20-year-old Honda. Their house, once a symbol of success, now just a weight around their necks saved from foreclosure but bleeding them dry in maintenance and taxes they could barely afford on warehouse wages. "Elena," Priya said quietly, "you won." "No." I watched my mother's head drop into her hands, exhausted after just 4 hours. Winning implies there was a competition. This was just consequence meeting action. The computer chimed. New delivery confirmation from the Navajo reservation. The antibiotics had arrived on schedule. Temperature perfect. Documentation complete. Somewhere, a child's fever would break. A grandmother's infection would clear. Life would continue. I closed the observation blinds. Below, my parents returned to work, supervised by a 25-year-old who'd started as a driver and earned his position through merit, not nepotism. The machinery of Sunstream continued its precise rhythm, packages sorted, vehicles loaded, medications delivered. The email notification showed another rural hospital requesting our services, another community abandoned by traditional logistics, another problem we could solve. I opened the proposal and began reading. There was work to do. Real work, the kind that mattered. In the warehouse below, a hand truck clattered against concrete. Tommy's voice, patient but firm. "Martin, restart the temperature log. Carol, those boxes need restacking. We do things right here, or we don't do them at all." The sound of cardboard sliding, of refrigeration units humming, of a business running exactly as it should. I allowed myself one last glance through the blinds. My parents, in their trainee badges and borrowed dignity, learning what work really meant. 6 more years of this. 2,190 more days of consequences. The intercom buzzed. "Elena, the mayor's office is on line 1. They want to discuss making Sunstream the official emergency medication provider for the county." "Send it through." I picked up the phone, already forgetting the 2 figures in the warehouse below. They were just employees now. Nothing more, and they would never be anything else again. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I'm curious, where are you listening from right now? Drop a comment and let me know what country or city you're in. I love connecting with listeners from around the world. If this story of justice and consequences resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts below. What would you have done in Elena's position? Looking forward to reading your perspectives.